Now, after last week's excellent yet rather dark and intense Crosshair episode, I was kind of expecting them to go back to the main team and to give us something a bit more light, fun, and calm this week, though I don't know I was expecting something quite this calm, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I know there will be some out there who call this episode boring or call it filler, especially after just how good last week's episode was. But for the most part, I enjoyed what this episode was, or what it was doing. That it was the proverbial calm before the storm, or the deep breath before the plunge. It was teasing a sort of happy ending for the entire team. Dangling everything they've ever wanted, or ever needed, or didn't even know they needed, right before their very eyes, before eventually, or probably in the next episode, snatching it all away. Basically, every member of the team seems to be getting exactly what they want on this island paradise. We have Wrecker being full, or having a full stomach for like the first time ever, implying he'll always have as much as he ever wants to eat here on this island, which, yeah, is a simplistic want. But Wrecker, for better or worse, has never really evolved beyond being a pretty simplistic character, and thus an endless supply of food is a dream come true for him. We then have Tech getting a potential girlfriend in Fee. At least to me, it felt like that was sort of being teased here, and she could be someone who teaches him how to be a little less analytical all the time, to stop thinking about and planning ahead or for every single contingency. We even see him playing a game against himself at the beginning of the episode, because he can never just relax and simply be, that he always needs to find a purpose or for his unmatched intellect to find something to do. But here Fee shows him a sunset, which begins to show him how to just live in the moment, to still his mind and to simply be, to maybe get in touch with his feelings and his emotions a bit better, which, as we saw a few episodes back, or learned from him when he was talking to Omega, he does feel like the others, or he does have emotions like them, he just doesn't know how to show them, or how to even express them. In other words, Fee is someone who could help bring that out of him, to help him stop being oblivious to the feelings and emotions of others as well, which is another flaw we've seen out of him time and time again, this inability to kind of spot the obvious. Then there's Hunter, who again maybe hasn't been the most complex character ever, but we know his main priority is the safety of his team and the safety of Omega, and considering we learned from Shep that the Empire, in theory, should never have any interest in this island because it's remote and has no resources they'd want to plunder, well, it then seems like the perfect place for them to settle down. Plus this place and its people, they already gladly welcome in newcomers or refugees. And finally we have Omega, and the beginning of the episode where she even apparently shoots and kills a guy with her bow, which might be the first time she's truly killed somebody, or at least I'm assuming she killed him. Maybe he has two stomachs or something. Either way, it is interesting to note how comfortable she is with shooting someone, and thus the beginning of the episode, them, the Bad Batch, all working like a well-oiled machine together, which I enjoyed. It shows how she's becoming just like them. That she's becoming nothing more than a soldier like her brothers, and that she has no one and nothing else in her life but them. This is even discussed by Fee and Hunter after the mission, which Tech even chimes in and basically says what's wrong with being a soldier, which again shows how he needs to kind of broaden his horizons a bit as well. This also, for Omega, goes back to a previous episode where she was distraught by the loss of the Marauder because that was their home, and the only place she could ever imagine being a home for them, considering Kamino or Topeka City and the Kaminoans never really gave her a sense of what a real home would or should be like. But here, while out to sea with someone her own age, someone who can be a friend for her and is clearly becoming one as the two are shown just being kids together, anyway, now Omega is contemplating if maybe somewhere else, besides the Marauder, could be home. She's starting to question herself on what kind of life she really wants to lead. Does she really want to be a soldier like her brothers, or is that, until now, simply the only type of life she allowed herself to imagine because it was all she really knew? In other words here, though on the surface this episode may seem boring or slow or completely unnecessary, and don't get me wrong, we didn't need this episode. We could have jumped straight into the big climactic events of the season finale and not exactly lost or missed anything. Anyway, though sure you could argue we didn't need this episode, it actually, though, does a terrific job with the characters, or as good as it can do, considering again some of the character development hasn't been that deep or that profound. It's maybe kind of a shame or sad that Paradise for Wrecker is an all-you-can-eat buffet. Nevertheless, we are indeed seeing the perfect place for all of them, as well as not only a place where they could all stay together as a family, but also as something more than that. They can be a part of a bigger community as well, which is what the end of the episode establishes when they decide to stay and help rebuild. They are going to make this place home, literally build it, and be welcomed with open arms. And though, like I was saying, maybe you don't need that, I feel like this episode does, or should, make whatever goes wrong next feel even more tragic. And yeah, I think we all know something is about to go very wrong, that being Sid betraying them to the Empire most likely. The episode, for better or worse, even gets framed by Sid's communication at the beginning, where she threatens them and even threatens Omega when she specifically says something about not just threatening you boys. I also gotta say here that I liked Fee a lot more in this episode than in the first one she was in. That she indeed isn't just a pirate for the money, but she is a liberator of ancient wonders, I suppose. That she even puts them into an Archeum, and that she maybe kind of has this thing for tech, like I was talking about before. There is certainly a bit more to the character than I initially thought was going to be the case. I also enjoyed Hunter's ability to predict earthquakes, though it almost felt more like he was reacting to the animals or sensing what they were sensing, not sure either way. And no, I don't think this means he's force sensitive or anything like that. It's just us finally seeing him use those heightened senses yet again, which is nice because of all of them, of all of the Bad Batch, I feel like his abilities are the least shown, or maybe most often forgotten about, or maybe just hard to show. And so overall, there's honestly not a ton to talk about with this episode, which in an odd sort of way is kind of the point or what the episode was going for. It's again trying to show us a potential happy ending that we know simply isn't going to be, because we know or can safely assume that Sid is going to betray them to the Empire. We even have Fee talking about how long she's known Sid and that she knows better than to truly trust her. I'm just curious if they'll let a bit of time go by first, if the next episode will show the island rebuilt and that the Bad Batch have kind of settled into their ways and are starting to get used to a new, different life before being pulled back into the fray. I kind of hope that's what they do. I don't want it to be like 2 days later the Empire shows up. And in theory, Sid should have no clue where they are right now. She hasn't been able to track them for weeks, as said at the start of the episode. And also, as established in the episode, Fee has never brought Sid here, and thus she probably will have to spend quite a bit of time tracking them down. So again, hopefully a good chunk of time goes by, and when the next episode starts, we see a whole kind of different Bad Batch, one who is getting used to island life. And speaking of Sid and her betrayal, I am curious to see if Sid will have a change of heart and somehow, some way, save them after regretting turning them into the Empire. I mean, I hope not. It'd be nice to not see that for like the millionth time in a story where the person who betrays them turns around and has a change of heart or always had a heart of gold. Instead, I just want Sid to be truly cold-hearted and selfish and to betray them and to not regret it. But something tells me they won't have the guts to actually do that with the character. And speaking of the impending end of this second season, we have 3 episodes to go. I am curious if this will be getting a 3rd season. I'm enjoying it enough for a 3rd season or beyond. I think it has some rough edges still, but it's been pretty dang good so far. Not to mention, it seems like there's still going to be a ton of story to wrap up when it comes to not only what becomes of the Bad Batch, not to mention also Omega, but what becomes of the clones overall. That's been one of the best parts of the whole series. But I suppose that's all a discussion for another time. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you thought of this episode. Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy what's clearly meant to be an emotional setup for the end of the season? Or did you find it boring and unnecessary? Or perhaps somewhere between the two extremes? Whatever you think, leave those comments below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.